Today I'm in conversation with Dominic George, who is a travel management consultant. Hi, Dominic.
Hi, Claire.
Hi. I'm really pleased to be talking with you today because it's a real opportunity to talk to someone who's in the industry and handles moving countries for a living. And I got to know you because you were, in my mind at the time, my travel agent for my booking a holiday to go to Crete. But in fact, you are a travel management consultant. And that revealed itself when everything in my holiday went completely wrong. And I wondered if you would share the story from your side, because you will bring the industry elements to it. Thank you.
That's all right. So welcome. I'm Dominic. I run a company called Global Connect Solutions. We're based in the UK, but ultimately have interline contracts and agreements with suppliers around the world. Claire and I met when she was going to Crete with her husband, and unfortunately, as sometimes happens, or admittedly on a very rare occasion, the airline goes bust. It's a very difficult situation that anybody could find themselves in, especially when they're actually in the destination. Quite often, UK governments may take a bit of a time to start repatriating people back, but ultimately, as a travel management consultant, I was there to be able to assist in the repatriation of my clients, my friends, and be able to get them back to the UK safely. Ultimately, in terms of the difference between what a travel management consultant and the difference of what a travel agent is a travel agent is effectively a booking intermediary. They're the person that just books things independently. They'll often have contracts with airlines, with hotels, with car hire companies, just to name a few. But when it comes to the travel management consultants, they will take all of that. They will act as a booking intermediary, but ultimately they take ownership of the product. If something was to go wrong during your stay or during your trip, even leading up to it, the travel agent probably would turn around and say, "Oh, okay, who are you? What's your booking reference? Okay, leave it with me." A travel management consultant is basically a proactive travel agent. It's a very bad analogy because they do so much more than just the booking intermediary. But when something does go wrong, you know that you've got the confidence that someone's there to assist you, to be able to help you, guide you through those sort of processes. Quite often, a really good travel management consultant will be able to deal with the situation a lot quicker than what a travel agent would do so, but also maybe able to deal with it proactively before you've even known something's going on. Every every airline has their own ATOL certificates, an air transport operator's license is issued by the UK Civil Aviation Authority. In the event that the airline goes bust, that ATOL certificate kicks into place, and realistically, it's to have a wider understanding of the industry is really beneficial, because you can understand that when things do go wrong, you know what you can do to make them right.
And is it in, when I talk to friends, and obviously I send people your way quite frequently, but often people are coming to me when the horse is bolted, and people probably don't, people probably underestimate the value of a travel management consultant over a travel agent, or don't even realize that there is such a difference. Would you say that's possibly the case?
Absolutely. And ultimately, while I'm not trying to go technical about how bookings are made and various intermediaries acting on one part and then another, and then other people and other suppliers getting involved in it, ultimately, in terms of the way in which a situation comes about, is often down to fortuitous circumstances, or sometimes actually unfortuitous circumstances, and ultimately you can find yourself in a very difficult, very compromised position. Quite often you'll turn around to a airline and they will turn around and say, okay, I'm really sorry, I know this has happened, but unfortunately we haven't got control over this. You need to go back to your travel agent and they'll be able to sort things out for you. It's a complex way of programming it, but ultimately this is where contracts and negotiations really play a really key part in the actual process of a customer journey. If you, for example, were stuck with an airline and that airline went bust, well, ultimately the airline doesn't exist anymore. You could go to your travel agent. Your travel agent would turn around and say, "Okay, yeah, leave it with me. I'll see what I can do." But a proactive travel manager, as I said, would be able to deal with those things independently. They'd be able to pull in all of these really important contacts. They might be able to rebook you onto another airline. They'll be able to utilize their experience and bring in the atoll scheme to ensure that you're repatriated back. The problem in terms of after the horse has bolted, which I know is a dreadful way to say it, because never does anyone ever want to be put in a position whereby they feel compromised or they feel as though something's gone wrong and they're out of control of the situation, or alternatively they're just left to say with the airline turning around saying, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, but it's going to be another £250 per person in order to change your ticket because you've missed your flight or something's gone wrong." And it's never a nice way to deal with it. But when you've already booked something and something goes wrong, quite often it's you that's put in this position. You're the one who has to find a way out of this. As a travel management consultant, effectively what we do is we take ownership over the situation. It's not to say that this isn't your holiday. It's an entirely customizable service that we operate. We're operating on a non-obligation basis. You don't necessarily even have to book with us. If you prefer to go and book directly, that's absolutely entirely your prerogative, and we won't take any offense from that. But ultimately, when you are in LA, as a really bad example, and all of a sudden your flight's been cancelled and you're being put on this flight, and well, hold on a second, I need to get back in time for a morning meeting. I need to get back to ensure that the dog can be picked up from the kennels, that the kids can be taken to school. If someone is in control of that, i.e. your travel management consultant, then they can proactively take into account the situation you're in and deal with things for the best benefit of the client. It may well be a slight inconvenience, but ultimately, as you said with your trip to Crete, it was only a day late or something like that, so you actually got back. Whereas ultimately, you could have been stuck out there potentially upwards of 2 weeks. I mean, we've all heard of airlines like XL Airways and First Choice and all those other airlines. Admittedly, we're talking low cost, but admittedly, we've also got airlines like Hong Kong Airlines back in 2004. I think they went bust. That have gone bust from a legacy perspective. And when the airline goes bust, there is genuinely no one at the airport apart from maybe a handling agent. They're the people that normally look like they work for the airline. They may look like they act on behalf of the airline. They may even have access to the internal systems. But if the airline's closed, the airline has ceased operations, and you're very much left with, okay, well, I need to go and speak to someone. Who do I speak to? Well, yeah, my government has an ownership as written in your passport to get you back if you were stranded out there, but that could be weeks away. If you've got a travel consultant on your side, then it really helps. It's a bit like having that ace up your sleeve. Okay, right, I'll go and contact Dom, and Dom will be able to help as best he can in order to do this. As another example, I had a client that turned up at the airport 3 hours before his flight, and all of a sudden his flight was cancelled. He was going off to mainland China. He was going off to Shan, which is, for a lot of people, you wouldn't even know, it's very eastern China, about an hour and a half flight away from Shanghai. So we are talking a fair old distance. But ultimately, they were just stranded there. Well, actually, if I'm able to access the systems and get you on another booking, yes, okay, admittedly they arrived in Shanghai slightly later than anticipated, but it meant that they wouldn't have to go home. They didn't have to be stuck in a hotel waiting for the next flight. They were on a flight within a matter of hours, admittedly via the Middle East, got to Shanghai. Okay, again, the inconvenience was that they were stuck in Shanghai, but at least they were stuck in Shanghai in a comfortable hotel that had already been organised at the airport. And then the following morning, after having a good breakfast and decent sleep, went off and arrived in Shan. And for them, that was easier for them. They were out there on a business trip, and they'd already had a good night's sleep. Previously, they were planning on arriving in Shan and going to bed and then starting the following day. Well, actually, if you've already done the long sector, you're somewhat acclimatized, you're somewhat more rested, and ultimately you have the capacity to do what you need to, be that start your holiday or to alternatively start that business meeting in a fresh mind and feeling relaxed.
Totally. So the key is to have a travel management consultant at your side at the beginning of your booking. And then you can focus on the content of your trip, the purpose of your trip, and there's someone who's got your back for the duration of the journey. or the duration of the trip, I mean. And when it comes to moving countries, a travel management consultant really can come into their own. And because there's many more services you provide, way more than the immediate booking and handling of a holiday. So what are some of the services you provide?
So if we were to take it into the context of actually when you're relocating to another country, and I do have a lot of clients that have utilized our services for such a purpose, a travel agent would basically deal with, okay, well, here's your flight. Brilliant. Okay, I might need a hotel when I arrive there, so I'm feeling rested and I just need to get on top of things before, because I may not necessarily have accommodation. Okay, fine. Okay, well, if you have got accommodation, then maybe we could organize ground transport. Okay, fine. But what sort of other things can you do? When it comes down to actually, I'm relocating, I've got all of my worldly goods in a 40-foot shipping container on a boat somewhere, let's say in the mid-Atlantic. And you need to ensure where that is. You need to have the confidence that your tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of worldly belongings is safe and that it's being tracked. And you have access to a booking portal or to a system management system whereby you can see where your worldly belongings are. Well, yeah, okay, that's brilliant. So what other things can we look at? Oh, okay, well, I've got Felix the cat. Felix the cat's traveling with us. And when it comes down to poor old Felix, it's they're a part of your family. You want them to be treated with the same kindness and respect as to what you would. Ultimately, we have contracts with transportation services, and we would liaise with them and ensure that you had all the information you needed to be able to get all the vaccinations up to date, that you would apply for your pet passport, because a lot of people don't even realize pets require passports to travel as well. They don't just travel as a commodity. They are ultimately like us in needing the services of the passport. They need to have their microchips. They need to have their vaccinations up to date. Potentially might need to go into quarantine. These are all considerations that a lot of people have, but it's so much more than what anybody would even imagine. I'm just relocating over to another country. Okay, well, I need to set up accommodation because I need to live somewhere. I need to organize my flight over there. Okay, fine. Okay, so have you thought about extra baggage? Have you thought about Felix the cat? Well, what about your worldly belongings? How do you know that they're going to be safe? Because your worldly belongings could take 2 weeks on a container. Admittedly, they may even take about 8 weeks to leave ports. I mean, there's at the moment a massive pressure on the logistics industry. Lack of lorry drivers, as we saw during the pandemic. A lot of containers building up in ports, just waiting on a boat to pick them up to take them to the destination. Because often containers will be picked up in Liverpool, shipped on the ship down to Dublin. That Dublin will go down to Cork, Cork over to Shannon, Shannon up to Iceland, Iceland over to Greenland, Greenland down to Boston, down to New York, down to Miami, before it finally arrives in your destination in Houston, Texas. I give a really bad example because obviously it doesn't normally take that way, but it can take a very long time for your worldly belongings. And ultimately, this is your goods. You need to ensure they're properly insured. That's another service that we're happy to consult on. Admittedly, there are some things that we can't do. Obviously, we can't go and take your cat down to the vet to go and have its vaccination. That's fairly obvious. Likewise, applications in terms of passports and visas often need to be done by the individual that's doing them. But it's not to say that we aren't happy to consult on these, because realistically, you want to ensure that, to use of a bad term, you're forewarned or forearmed with all the information that you need to make your journey more seamless. Because often people just think about, oh god, right, well, I've already sent the shipping container off. How do I suddenly get my extra bag of clothes? Okay, don't worry, I'll contact Dom. Dom will be able to tell me. He'll be able to liaise with the airline. We can talk about how much the weight restrictions are. We can weigh out the pros and cons of maybe upgrading a cabin, because when you travel in a premium cabin, often you'll get an increased baggage allowance. And that ultimately can help save some of the cost, but also make your journey a bit more comfortable.
It's really interesting because one of the things we discovered in relocating was we did ours piecemeal, partly because of the situation my husband was in and it was his job we were moving for, and because his employer was handling certain pieces. So the other pieces I handled. But I think there are many unforeseens or surprises, things you don't anticipate. And I look back on that experience and I think if I'd worked with you, I would have been able to plan better, track better, and have an insight into the process, because I'm literally learning as I'm doing. So there were all sorts of things that went a little bit pear-shaped. Like my husband's job was coming up quite suddenly, so we didn't have oceans of time. And I remember, requesting the shipping company, but I hadn't factored in their schedule and, when they could come, and we were moving out. So we had this dilemma of moving out, but having the stuff shipped in time, things like that. And we ended up lucky. But, if you and I had been talking in the weeks beforehand, it's not like I didn't know we were moving, then you would have forewarned me of something like that and said, anticipate the following, bear in mind this and that. And I can really see the added value, because I found the entire thing stressful. And so if you go to an expert, you literally surrender to their expertise, then that removes a whole raft of the stress. So yes, I do know for future reference, when we move on to another country, Tom, you'll be getting a call. And you're UK based, like you said, and so you relocate people from England to somewhere, but also from somewhere to England, don't you? You're happy to undertake.
Absolutely. And ultimately, being UK based obviously gives us an advantage. We aren't immigration lawyers by any means, but obviously we can offer consultants based services to assist in your move. Often people will be moving or relocating for normally the purpose of work, but it's not to say that some people don't migrate because they want to find a better life, or alternatively, if they are in a comfortable circumstance, they want to go and spend 6 months in South Africa and 6 months in the UK, or 3 months in the US and 3 in the UK and 3 in Japan and 3 in Australia. There are some people that go and sail the world, and that's entirely their prerogative. I think it's a wonderful lifestyle to have. Absolutely, if I had all the time and the money in the world, it's probably something I would look at doing. But realistically, we can offer those sort of services, because it doesn't just come down to the whole moving countries. Ultimately, if you're going off for a business trip, you may need to think about actually visas for working in China. There are potentially even work visas you need for the US. A lot of people even go off to the US, turn up at the airport and find out, oh my goodness, I need a visa travel waiver. Oh, I didn't know about that. Well, how long is it valid for? When was the last time you were in the States? Because you might actually already have one. You may have actually even thought about this previously. So if someone's there and they are actually able to advise accordingly, and I know obviously the pandemic was a very tough and very stressful environment for lots of people to find themselves in, but equally we offered consultation in terms of vaccination status. If people needed to organise a polymer chain reaction PCR test or a lab test at the airport, then we could organise that to ensure that the services were done prior to their arrival at the airport. Again, this is just about making their journey and their experience more seamless. It's more to stop things that could potentially go wrong going wrong. It's not to say that obviously everything we do is entirely protected, because life in general always comes with an element of risk. But ultimately, if you feel as though you're on control of a situation, then ultimately when something does go wrong, you say, actually, no, it's fine, because I've already been warned about this. What potentially could I do going forward? But equally know that someone's in your corner to be able to help you if things did go wrong.
Completely. And it's actually really reassuring listening to you. It's very calming, and I'm literally like, why didn't we just work with Dom? So one of the things I find really valuable in specifically working with you is the personal element that you bring to it. When people have used you, who I know, and they've come back to me, the things that they've tended to say is, Dom was very caring. He got into my world. He understood where I was coming from. So when they're dealing with the concerns, sometimes you see the bigger picture than what they see. They see an immediate issue, whatever it is, but you see the bigger picture. So you end up allaying a double set of fears almost, their immediate concern, but beyond that. And that's what people have come back to me and said, why they're so happy to work with you. And I really enjoy that personal element. It's like nothing is too much for you. There's nothing is a waste of time for you. So yeah, would you like to say a little bit more about
Yeah.
that
Yeah, I
side
mean,
of
absolutely.
things?
It's lovely to hear all these wonderful accolations, and I thank you very much indeed. Certainly for obviously all the business you've brought to the company, but ultimately, look, you are an individual. You are a person. You're not client reference 703861. You are Claire. You are Jim. You are Sue. You are Roger. I'm Dominic. Nice to meet you. It's a personalized thing. At the end of the day, what a travel agent will do is they'll sell you effectively a product that's being sold by a travel provider, an airline, a hotel, a car hire. Okay, brilliant, fine. But if you didn't need that car hire, well, why should you need to organize it? But if you needed it when you get to Miami and say, yeah, we'd like to drive across the Everglades and go and see some of the wildlife. Oh, can we contact Dom? Yeah, no problem at all. Look, this is it's a service that we provide, and it's very much a tailored thing. We want to make sure that you feel in control of this. It's not that we're trying to take over the ownership of ultimately what is your holiday, your business trip, your relocation. It's entirely up to you as to what you want to include. As I said, we operate on a non-obligation basis. Even if it was just a case of that even during your trip, you turned around and said, oh, actually, we'd like to discuss about car hire. Could you look at a few things? Yeah, absolutely no problem at all. And then you turn around and say, actually, no, I think budget's probably a little too tight. Look, I'm not going to take any offense. I'm not going to charge anything for services I don't provide. At the end of the day, I'm here to try and make your life easier. Your service is a bit like a bit of a cake. Realistically, if you want one slice of a flight, if you want another slice of hotel, if you want another slice of visa information, if you want another slice of car hire, ultimately we're making your cake. I know it's a dreadful analogy, but realistically we're making your journey easier. Obviously, when it's trying to act in a seamless way, if something does go wrong, then at least you know you've got someone on your side. In terms of the personalization, ultimately you're a client of mine, and I want to ensure that you're given the same respects that I would expect to be treated by the same airline. We'll try our hardest to ensure that everything goes right. We've got a dedicated team of people that monitor everything, be it your flight, if there's a delay to your flight, and then obviously they were getting contact with you and just say, okay, look, don't worry. There's a slight delay to your flight. This will obviously cause a slightly longer wait in Frankfurt for your connecting flight. Look, it's fine. You haven't got anything to worry about. But if you want to organise like lounge access, we can easily go and do that. And because all that, obviously the things don't necessarily come for free. But I mean, if you need us to contact anybody to let you know that you're running late, look, that's fine. We're very happy to assist, because traveling is stressful. And ultimately, it's not like as it was in the 1920s when everybody started flying on the old AT&T biplane aircraft. They turned up at Croydon Airport with dressed in their Sunday best, with their luggage all labelled and all wonderful, and just got on a plane and was served this carvery and copious amounts of champagne. You need travel insurance, you need visas, you need passports, you need all of these things that make up this picture. Well, actually, a lot of people don't even think about half these things. They think, oh, brilliant, I'm off on holiday. Yeah, superb. Yeah. But have you thought about where you're going? Lovely, going to Thailand, wonderful. But have you thought about your yellow fever, dengue fever? Maybe you might even need to think about your waterborne diseases, cholera. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, cholera vaccination is a really lovely drink. It tastes like strawberry, but that's by the by. But yeah, all of these things, it's wonderful. But yeah, you might need to go and book and see a travel nurse just to get your inoculations. We want to ensure that you're best prepared for what is eventually a trip of a lifetime. And if you're relocating, then absolutely, we want to ensure that you feel as though you can travel confident in the knowledge that someone is there to support you. We're like your guiding hand. We're very happy to take you by the hand and take you through the process all the way from start to finish. The moment you say, yep, Dom, I'm ready to go. Okay, no problem at all. We got all of the confirmation sorted. We get everything all done. Invoice will be sent out and various things like that. But ultimately, our services don't just suddenly stop the moment we've made the booking. No, they're going to continue all the way through. So a travel agent will turn around and say, there you go, Claire. There you go, Jim. There you go, Bob. There you go, Roger. Have a lovely time. Brilliant. Enjoy yourself. Well, actually, what about our worldly belongings? Oh, okay. And this is the problem when a lot of people do book things piecemeal. It's not to say that you could do that. I mean, you're very welcome to be in control of any element that you wanted. But if you've got someone that's helping you and guiding you through and holding your hand, then it's going to make your life certainly easier, maybe less stress-free, but it's going to make it a bit more of a seamless experience. At the end of the day, we're here to help and guide you, but we'll be here until you're finished with us. be that from the point of booking all the way through until you walk in that door and you relocate and everything's all good. Look, we're very happy to be here and help you through the process. Okay, admittedly, we can't speed up boats as nice as it would be. 40-foot shipping containers obviously often have hundreds, if not thousands of containers on them. We can't make them go any faster, but at least you know where it is. At least you know potentially which dock it's going to be going in, probably even what time of the day you're going to be, so you can then organise your own personal commitments around that. Look, we'll be here until you need us. At the end of the day, the world is opening up and we want to bring your dreams to fruition. That may well be relocating. That may well be bringing loved ones to see you. Equally, when you're out there, you may turn around and say, actually, we've just relocated to London. We've moved over from the States and my parents are still in New York and I want them to fly over to come and spend Thanksgiving or to spend Christmas with us. Could you look into that? Yeah, absolutely no problem at all. Oh, but actually, I've got my brother. He's coming in from Shanghai. Well, actually, rather than saving you 2 trips to the airport, maybe we could try and organise the travel services so that both flights arrive at the same time. Saves you 1 journey. And therefore, at the end of the day, that's what a good travel management consultant can do. It's about making life easy, but ultimately it's about ensuring that you're prepared to go into the journey, but knowing that you're not alone in this journey.
I think it's really a big deal to have somebody like that on your side, because one, you're getting the peace of mind. The removal of stress is huge, but also that it's the extra layer of thinking that I really think makes the difference. Like when we arrived in America, there were so many things that took us by surprise. We're in an English-speaking country. So many things seemingly should have been so easy. So if you're taken by surprise in dealing with those things, it really helps in the background to have these other things not be a shock or a surprise. Yeah. And I love your part about dreams to fruition, because that really is what people are about. You know, like you are fulfilling on something that's to the individuals very, very important, and the logistics and everything around it is just something you kind of have to go through. But you know, I think it's extraordinary that you bring that personal element to it, and the depth of care that you bring to each individual client. You know, just the way you summed up with your point about connecting the flights.
And at the end of the day, that's what our consultants are here to do. I'm a director of the company. That's what I do. I'm effectively where the buck stops. But ultimately, in terms of the people that work in and around me, look, we're all colleagues. At the end of the day, we've got people that are monitoring all these things on a daily basis. There are often situations where flights may be running late. Actually, if you know that flight's going to be leaving late due to a late inbound aircraft, or potentially they've had to be rerouted somewhere else, or, I mean, heaven forbid, there may even be a technical divert to some strange odd place and they need to be looked after and cared for before they get over. At least you know that they are there and they're in charge, in the care of your travel management consultant. If things do go wrong, then ultimately they haven't got to do too much other than say, yeah, everything's all in hand, everything's all right, don't be in contact, and he'll sort everything out for you.
Yeah, absolutely reassuring. So we will provide your details, because you're very happy for people to reach out to you and use you directly. Absolutely. Aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, as I said, we operate on an obligation basis. If you want us to spend 6 months walking you through all the steps you require, be it for relocation, for holidays, for business travel, look, we're very happy to help guide you through. And if at the end of the 6 months you turn around and say, actually, no, Dom, it's fine, I don't think I can afford it, or alternatively, other situations come up, look, we're not going to take any offense. We're always here if you need us. And realistically, look, there are companies, I won't obviously name any of them, but there are much, much larger companies than we are, and they'll charge you a minimum £3,000 for a basic service. We're effectively like a pay-as-you-go. Ultimately, we'll charge you a one-off fee for that trip. Be that trip, be the whole relocation, be that for the holiday, be that for the business trip. And you know that our services are here if you need them. If it needs to be that you need to organise a dinner reservation, if car hire is further down the line, that's the reason why your travel management consultant is there from the start right into the end.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you for sharing the information. It's really greatly appreciated.
Very welcome, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you.